live and direct from anywhere in the world. It's The Kelly Show with Dr. Kelly Mondesire.
Hello and welcome back to The Kelly Show, real people with real stories in real time. And we're kicking off the month of April. April's theme is the state of global agriculture. And let me pose a question to all of you today. What if you had $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion, but you couldn't get a loaf of bread, nor could you get a sack of rice? And the only person you could obtain food from was the local farmer that you've been spitting on for years and years, and they say no and turn you away. Well, today I'm bringing on as a special guest someone who is an advocate for global agriculture, a very special friend of mine, but you're going to have to stay tuned. We'll be right back from our sponsor for a very serious conversation about the state of global agriculture. So be right back.
This portion of The Kelly Show is being brought to you by White Wolf Advisory Services. We are the bridge between nations, creating growth, commerce and collaboration between cultures. Contact us today for more information.
Welcome back to The Kelly Show. And as I said before, this month, the month of April, is the month of the state of global agriculture. And today I have a very, very special guest, a good friend and colleague of mine, coming to us from, he's going to tell us, Mr. Eamonn Walsh. And Mr. Eamonn Walsh is the CEO and founder of Get Funded. He is an F1 enthusiast, an advocate of Irish produce, and he is the champion of the family-owned farm. So I'd like to welcome, it's a privilege and honor, Mr. Eamonn Walsh to the studio. Hello, Eamonn. How are you?
Kelly, how are you? I'm very well. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Well, Eamonn, let's start from the top. Where are you from and where in the world are you right now?
I'm from a really famous place in the west of Ireland called Foxford, right?
Oh, yeah?
And that's currently where I'm sitting right now. That's in the west of Ireland. I live on the east of Ireland now, but I'm sitting in the west of Ireland in the house where I was raised. We're famous for many, many things. We produced a son here who went on to liberate Argentina. We've got some great poets from this part of the world. F.R. Higgins came from this part of the world. We've got some of the Irish leaders during the Troubled Times here. The Land League and that kind of thing came from this part of the world as well. So saints and scholars, warriors and heroes from this part of the world. And of course, many, many farmers.
And of course you, but for our viewers who aren't familiar with the geography of Ireland, can you give us 1 or 2 points in the area that they might know or be a little bit more familiar with?
Well, yeah, no, maybe 40 minutes drive away from here, we've got a very, very famous mountain called Crowpatrick, where St. Patrick, everyone knows of St. Patrick's Day, right? He spent his 40 days and 40 nights supposedly on this mountain, and there's a church. It's a really old volcanic mountain, actually. It hasn't erupted in many, many generations, but there's a church right on top of the mountain, built on top of the mountain. Another famous landmark for anyone that's into their fishing would be the River Moy, on which Foxford is actually on the banks of the River Moy. And we've got some of the most famous salmon pools in the world. People come from all over the world to fish the famous Moy salmon in the west of Ireland.
Well, when I come back, aside from horseback riding and seeing all my friends, I'm a fan of fly fishing, so I'll bring my gear and maybe do some salmon fishing.
We'll get you, Gilly, and we'll get you out there on the banks.
All right, good enough. Okay, so talk about what is Get Funded and how did you become involved with Get Funded? Do tell.
Okay, so Get Funded, what we're looking to do in Get Funded, I like to say it's a bit like Ron Seal. I don't know if you guys have Ron Seal in the United States, does what it says in the tin. Right, so over here we got a famous varnish. It's called Ron Seal, and their slogan is "It does what it says in the tin." So I like to think our brand of Get Funded does what it says in the tin. Right, it's about taking projects, taking visions, I should say. Right, many people out there that are championing a project and looking to secure funding to drive their projects forward. And I'm talking startups, I'm talking established companies. It's universal across the board. they have an idea that they think is a project, right? But it's not a project, right? And there's a transition that needs to happen. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to transition from an idea, from a vision, into an investable, bankable project. That's what Get Funded is. We run a lot of events. We do a lot of private work, consulting with clients and that as well, about getting them up to a point where they can actually compete for funding. If you go to the funding market with an idea, people will be very polite to you, but you'll be wondering after 10, 20, 100 conversations why you haven't gotten anywhere. And it's usually because you don't have a project, you have an idea. So we play in that playground of that transitionary period from project, or from idea to investable, bankable project, and then you can actually go and compete and have a realistic shot at actually getting your investment. Our passion is farmers, it's agriculture, people that are involved in various different projects on the technology side, but on the agri-activity side as well, and the farming activity side as well. That's our passion. Those are the people we love to serve, and that came from fear, actually, a fear I saw in my father a number of years ago. We come from a generational farm. We can trace it all the way back to the famine in the 1800s here in Ireland, right? And it's been there long before that, but that's as far as we can trace it back. And I could see a fear in my father in terms of he was afraid he'd pass, and that the farm would die with him, you know? So that's where it came from. We come from a family farming background ourselves that had an uncertain future in terms of this historic legacy that secured the family for generations. So I saw funding and access to funding as being one of the biggest obstacles to family farms in terms of securing their future, right? So that's where the passion came from. That's where it wasn't actually called Get Funded then. We had no name for it, but that's where it all originally started.
Well, it's pretty straightforward, and I can say for some of my clients I've had that are seeking funding, it's not an easy task to find funding and investors for different organizations. I can speak for the med device and life sciences space personally, particularly for companies who want to create a footprint here in the United States. It's not an easy task. So my hat is off to you. But let's segue to the state of global agriculture, particularly for the farmers. Something about the challenges that your family farm faced, or what are the challenges that the farmers are facing today? Can you talk about what goes into the family farm, so to speak, the small farmer? Because we all hear about large organizations buying up small farms and just gobbling up agricultural land. So do tell.
Look, there's many reasons. There's many struggles and challenges facing farmers in Ireland, in the UK, America, and all over the world. We're actually running a whole series of articles about this on LinkedIn at the moment, where we dissect several different countries, and I think this highlights one of the really big problems. Okay.
Hold on for a sec. Before we take this slide down, I just want to ask you, what is the significance, and where are these photos taken?
These are taken on our land. This was we destocked our farm in the back end in December last year. We'll be restocking them now again in the next few weeks. But these cattle. That one on the left is 69. I called her. We never gave them names. It was always the last two digits of their ear tag, right? That was 69. She was the quietest cow on the farm. But these are our cattle. This is our land here in the west of Ireland, and these are Angus. They were bred for quality heifers, is what they were bred for. These cows are this herd was on our land for generations. It was a very sad day actually when we put them up on the trailer and sent them all off. But we will be restocking again in a number of weeks. Yeah, this is I suppose the fruit of years and years and years of selectively breeding our cattle.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And it's a beautiful landscape. And while you're continuing with the plight of the small farmers, I wanted to give the audience an idea of what this farm looks like, what the land looks like, what the cattle look like. So please, let's continue the conversation.
And I think it's worth noting on that as well, as many of the farmers would be in our area. There's a mix there of, this is really all it is on our farm. We don't have any big fancy sheds. We got loads of land, but we don't got loads of grass, but we don't got big fancy sheds. It's all organic. No major technologies or anything like that at play. But anyways, the plight of farmers, right? Our recent research of the state of dependency, financial dependency in agriculture, in terms of loans and in terms of grants, is huge. On average, you're talking across the world, you're talking about 70% of farming enterprises would collapse, would actually be bankrupt if you removed debt and you removed grants in the morning. Across the world, it would be approximately 70% of farms across the world would be bankrupt. And that's not just small farmers. There is a chunk of the bigger players that would be in that boat as well, right? So that's huge. It's higher in some countries, it's lower in others, right? But across the board, you're looking about 70%. And that goes back, Kelly, to something you said, right? If you had $1 million in the bank, right? Put a twist on what you said. You had $1 million in the bank and you had no food and you had to go to your farmer. Well, imagine if the farmer had lost their grants, lost their and that was taken away. You'd only have 30% of them then to go to, right? So that's one of the biggest struggles, is this dependency. You'll hear a lot of people talking about input costs, right? And that is huge. Fertilizers, feed. For us, we have meadowland that we cut every year to make hay. Our fertilizer costs down there they've quadrupled in recent years, right? Cost of feed of supplementing feed for cattle, it's gone through the roof. But there's a bigger issue, because even before our input costs went up, it was very, very challenging, very, very difficult to run a profit on the farm without a grant, right? If it was any other enterprise in the world, if it was any other business in the world, it wouldn't survive. No one would invest in it, right? It cannot stand on its own 2 feet, as a business enterprise. That's a big challenge, and before the 1940s, that wasn't really the way of things, The grants kind of originally came around after World War II, subsidies and grants and things like that, because famine often, follows war, and it was a great initiative at the time to prevent famine, right? So I'm not knocking grants by any means, right? It was a great initiative at the time, but our society has become massively dependent on these grants to supply to supply our food, and that means farming as a business enterprise is largely, if you looked at the financial data, it's unviable for approximately 70% of the enterprises worldwide, and that's a huge issue.
That's scary.
Yeah.
That's really scary. Well, my next question to you is front and center, given the environmental changes globally, whether it's fires, floods, droughts, volcanoes, earthquakes, the earth is heating up, global warming, whether you agree with it or not, a fact is a fact. The earth is heating up. Climates are changing. What does that mean for the farmers? How are they dealing with these climatic events? For example, 2 years ago, I was spending the summer in Geneva, Switzerland, and there was a terrible drought. There were fires all over Southern Europe, Greece, France, everywhere. It was crazy. But on the news one night, the Swiss army was reported to be airlifting water to the cattle in the Alps. And that's crazy. So in your perspective, as being a champion and advocate of family farming, and so entrenched in the cattle business in Ireland, what's your take on what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What can we do going forward to address these climatic changes?
Well, the first thing I would say in terms of finding solutions to securing the food supply, right, and making sure that the farmers keep churning out, what we've always churned out, there is no better group of people than farmers to figure that out. Okay, farmers, particularly family farms, legacy farms, generational farmers, whatever you want to call them, our ancestors grew up in times where it was literally do or die, and I don't mean that as an expression. It was figure it out or you will die. You know, so the stakes have always been, for most of these generational farms, the stakes have always been very, very high for farmers. So that's nothing new, right? That's nothing new to the farmer. They're very innovative, very resourceful. But I mean, we had very recently the worst storm on record in Ireland. I certainly do not remember anything like it. A hell of a lot of damage, a hell of a lot of forestry damage, a hell of a lot of farms, sheds blown away, and things like this. Um, my honest opinion on it, and it may not be a popular one, my honest opinion on it is you're going to have to let the farmers farm, right? You're going to have to, the farmers know their land, know it for generations. Yes, technology is brilliant in this capacity as well, in terms of different types of ways we have of analyzing soil and affecting, you know, yields and things like that, and supplementary feeds for animals and all kinds of things like that. But you got to let the farmers farm. There has to be there. I believe there is going to have to be a release on regulation, right? We could do with some deregulation, I think, in agriculture. I mean, if I take, for example, in Ireland, slatted houses for cattle have been all the rage for a number of years, because there were big grants going for them, right? So that the Europe would pay you to put up your big slatted houses, and that influenced your model of farming and how you farmed your cattle. And they were great, don't get me wrong. But now they're bringing in new regulations around, organic grants, which require you to cover in your slats, right? So they keep moving the goalposts, and they keep trying to dictate to farmers how farmers should farm, right? And they're being the regulators and the guys that are writing all the legislation, the regs for this industry, they're being reactive, they're being responsive, they're never in front of things, they're never even on par with things, they're reacting to something that happened 2 years ago, and the environment has moved on, the world has moved on, and it's too late, right? So my 2 cents on that particular issue is, how do we overcome this? Is give the control back to the farmers to farm the land the way the farm needs to be land needs to be farmed.
I have a provocative question for you,
Go
because
for
we
it.
see shuttles going to the moon. Mars is in the sights and minds of many. If I were a Martian, I'd be running like hell. But anyway, where do you see the state of global agriculture? And this is a two-part question. Where do you see the state of global agriculture in 10 years and moving forward, if humans decide to colonize the moon as a landing pad to go to Mars or Jupiter or wherever else they want to go? How does that affect, do you think, the state of agriculture here on this planet? And are there technological conversations right now going on within the agricultural community as to how you're going to feed, or what methods of feeding a population if it's puddle jumping from Earth to Mars to Moon to Jupiter? It's an outlandish question, perhaps, but maybe not.
Look, you could say it's an outlandish question, but it's not been spoken about too widely in the agricultural sphere. But I mean, the general conversation of colonizing other planets is being had in various different circles, and I can assure you that food security is going to be paramount. It's going to be their first, second, third, fourth, and fifth concern: food and water. Right? Because you can send as many people as you want, you can build a rocket that goes as far as you want, right? If you can't feed the people on it, then and keep them hydrated, then you cannot do anything, right? So those conversations are being had. It's kind of scary to think about, right? It's kind of scary to think about, because the system for feeding the people on this planet is so fickle at times, right? It's such a delicate system we have. You would have to, and if you look at it, you would have to look at off-planet solutions, like I believe locals. If we were to colonize other planets, you'd have to look at, local solutions on those planets which is, you might read into that and say, well, that's why there has been such emphasis in hydroponics. Bear in mind, everyone thinks hydroponics is new. It's not. Hydroponics has been around for a hell of a long time. A hell of a long time, right? I mean, longer than it's been. I don't have the exact date, but it's been around since ancient times. There are records of hydroponic facilities in ancient civilizations. Now, obviously, done in a very different way to how we do them today, but the theory and the logic and the practice of it has been around for an awful long time. So, now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that behind the scenes there's hands at work saying the only reason we're developing these hydroponic technologies is because of off-planet needs and things like that. It's for there are a number of applications for hydroponics, but that is going to be the biggest challenge is how do you feed them, and it's going to have to be. And I don't think a supply chain from this planet to another planet would stand up.
Got it. Well, I've just thought of this while listening to you. What can the viewer do? How can they take action? There's so much food waste going on globally, yet there's so much food insecurity in local communities. How would one formulate perhaps an ugly fruit, ugly vegetable food cooperative? Or what can everyone do on their part to help protect our climate, our environment, our earth, to help feed someone who doesn't have a meal coming their way?
Good question. There is a lot of food waste. I mean, look, we produce enough food to feed everyone. We actually produce a hell of a lot more than we need to feed everybody. Okay. I mean, there are oranges and things like oranges and lemons, right, that get rejected out of the supply chain in by certain retailers because the little green bit on the top.
Yes.
Because it's missing that.
Oh.
And there are organizations out there tackling that level of things where they're taking that food and delivering it to people in need. I think the retailers have a big responsibility in this, and I think the big food buyers have a big responsibility in this. That okay, I get it, right? I get it. You've got big operations to run. You've got massive supply chains and long logistics and everything like that to worry about, and you need carrots. You need to fit as many carrots in the box so that they can fit in the truck so that you can get the maximum across and all. I get it, right? But it's the recklessness of you're just dumping the rest. It's the recklessness of you're just rejecting the rest, and then you gotta get involved in the conversation, and you gotta work with the farmers and work with the other people in the supply chain to find a way to utilize that food, whether that's a scheme that does for the vulnerable, going back to something we had in Ireland a long time ago, like soup kitchens and things like that, and things like workhouses here in Ireland and things like that, where you could work for a meal. I'm not suggesting we go back to workhouses, but if we looked at some kind of a charitable model like that, there's a responsibility there. There's a corporate responsibility there on the industry that has, in a lot of ways, created that problem. Okay. Now, your question was, what can an individual do, right? And I believe the best thing an individual can do, and I understand this is not maybe overly accessible for everybody, particularly people living in large urban areas, but it starts with awareness. You cannot tackle an issue you have very low or zero awareness of, and we're talking about it here, and we're giving people a thimble of the awareness that, oh yeah, there's some issue about carrots not fitting in boxes. What's that about? I don't know. I don't care, right? You got to become aware, and the best way you can become aware is go spend a day on a farm, right? By and large, farmers are very, very approachable people. They live very often in isolation. Okay, they live in very small communities, and even within those communities, they often live miles away from anybody else. They're usually quite approachable and love to see people coming, right? They're very busy. Don't get in their way. Right? Don't get in their way, or you might get knocked over. But they're very nice people, and that would be my advice. Go, reach out to a farmer if there's farmers in your area, or within a reasonable distance from you. Contact them and go, hey, I heard some fella talking to on the Kelly show, and he mentioned that I should go and talk to a farmer and just ask them, would you mind if I came and spend a day on your farm? There are actually farmers that engage with schools now,
Oh,
in the
great.
United States, in Ireland, in all over the world. They engage with schools and they bring kids out and teach them, well, this is where your milk comes from. This is where your steak comes from. This is where your bread comes from. It's corn in the ground, it's wheat in the ground, whatever. That would be your starting point. You've got to increase your awareness. And I am telling you, you will not increase your awareness on a screen. You can come to you can watch as many of these shows as you want. You can watch as many of these videos on YouTube, or read as many articles online as you want. You got to get the experience. And that's something we're very much removed from, the experience of where our food comes from. For most people, their experience of where their food comes from and food security is going to the local shop, picking it up off the shelf, going beep at the till, and tapping their card or scanning their card, right?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And it's sad and it's a shame. I agree with you that there's nothing more satisfying than picking your own vegetables or your herbs. Personally, now that I'm here down in South Carolina, I have a garden. Everything I have planted is edible. So
Brilliant.
Yes. And I'm looking forward to having my own fruits once again. It's been quite some time. You can't do that in Manhattan, that's for sure. And the community gardens in Manhattan, as nice as they are, I wouldn't eat it because at night the rats come along and they're foraging through, and that's just like, not so great. But we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with more from my good friend and colleague, Mr. Eamonn Walsh, after a word from our sponsor. Be right back.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Many Purple Hats, MPH, Vroom! Get noticed online, stand out from the crowd, differentiate yourself from all that white noise. Vroom!
And welcome back to The Kelly Show with my special guest today, Mr. Eamonn Walsh. And Eamonn, we have a tradition here on The Kelly Show. I ask all my guests, if you could name one person, place, thing, or experience that you are grateful or thankful for, who or what would it be? Do tell. And we have a slide up for you while you talk about this special guy.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Kelly, for that. As you know, my father passed on the 27th of December, 2024. Yes. Even before he passed, I would have always said the most impactful experience that I've ever had was an experience in a car with him. When it was actually my first memory with my father. We were in a car and we were driving down a country road in Ireland. It's in, actually, the story is in this book here of driving down the road. And I was doing whatever I was doing, and all of a sudden he slams on the brakes, right? And I feel that into the seatbelt, and it digs in, and I go flying back in the car. And before I realize what's going on, he's standing outside in front of the car. I'm ready to, give him some colorful language, right? And I'm young, right? But so he's out, and I see him wrestling with this big rock, right? He's got this great big rock, and he's wrestling with this rock, and he's up on his chest, and he's trying to get it back up on the wall on the side of the road. And I'm looking at him going, what's he doing? Because you could have just went around it, right? You could have just went around, as many people would do. And he gets back in the car, and I'm really ready to lay into him when he gets back in the car. What are you doing? You hurt my chest, nearly this, all this. And he turns around to me and he says, Eamonn, always remember, you have a duty of care to your fellow man.
Wow. So
that would be the most impactful place, thing, and person in my life. I could boil it back to that. It's actually our number one core value in Get Funded is duty of care.
Well, we are going to remember Mr. Roy Walsh, father of Eamonn Walsh, And our condolences once again, Eamonn. I know it's been a bit of a tough time, but I want to thank you for sharing not only your expertise on the state of global agriculture, but we are going to have Eamonn back later on this month when we're going to bring him and other experts in the field of global agriculture to come on and speak as a panel within their various expertise on what's going on with Mother Earth. So Eamonn, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. And folks, if you would like to reach out to Mr. Eamonn Walsh, we have his contact information up. You can reach out to him as far as getting funded for your idea or project. He's the man you should reach out to. Speak out and speak up your comments, opinions on YouTube about this conversation, and also reach out to Eamonn if you have any questions concerning Angus beef, Irish heritage beef, small farming, or what you might be able to do in your own community, no matter where in the world you are. So Eamonn, I want to thank you once again, my friend. I'll see you soon, and be well, God bless. And if you would like to be on The Kelly Show, please do write into us. We have a contact information down here. Write in who you are, where in the world you're from, where in the world you are now, what your story is, but most importantly, why you would like to share your story on The Kelly Show. And stay tuned for next week's show when I welcome to the table Mr. Ken Dunn, who is a remarkable individual doing so much for so many people on the African continent. So don't miss it. Stay tuned. Subscribe to The Kelly Show today, and we'll see you next time. Gareth, take it away.
If you would like to be a guest on The Kelly Show, send us an email with your contact information, where in the world you are, and a brief description of the story you'd like to share today.